um, it is, there's so many things that are important, right, in the universal and galactic template community of the language of music, which is the language of math, which is the language of spirit. So I don't have any graphics programs, so to speak. I just use a phone, and I go through these things fairly often, right? So I exchange a lot of libraries. But one of the things that I wrote down here, I picked up a couple of discs that they had out in the room here, right? CD-ROMs. So that's a disc plate, right? So you can think of this like a CD plate, a CD, right? CDT, like Aloha T, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. The spiritual flow, which is the form, color, and shape of the function of energy, consciousness energy. You like experiencing yourself in a compressed state or an expanded state, right? Gas, liquid, solids, semi-solid, right? I know, earth, wind, water, and fire, right? So I know that this is redundant for a lot of folks, but I wrote a few things down this morning a little while ago because I do a lot of writing because for a number of different reasons, actually. I found it a very useful tool to manifest with as a process of energy, right? So it's one of the reasons why I realized with Mama, right? Mama Earth, healing Mama Earth, is by the nature of our spirit, which is the nature of our flow, which is the nature of the flow of our consciousnesses, by virtue of what we're intending to use with our energy that represents what we are in energy at the now time moment in which we're experiencing what that is as a manifestation of what we're experiencing. So that's why I've said in the past that when you're out in the waves and you're having an enormous amount of fun, she's experiencing you having fun in a state of love and joy. So that lifts her spirit because she is experiencing the nature of our energy that is in flowing motion, as in motion pictures. So when I write, like, I'll give you one example, because Mama knows this about me. She just knows, because the whole intent is for her to experience what I'm experiencing, which is what love is. It goes on forever. That's a beloved. Be what love is, right? That's a beloved. Be loved. Be loved, right? And so I'll give you one example. I think I mentioned the girl that I had. My intention was to find a girl, and it's no coincidence how I ended up finding her. So I went to an online website that had a listing of females that are incarcerated. So they're in a cage, okay, for having broken a rule-based function, right? And so she had written a short little blurb. Her name was Christina Gonzalez. She was, if you will, a native, right? 12 clans and tribes, right? She was, as she self-described, that she was Puerto Rican and Mexican, okay? And she had mentioned that she had a heart of gold. So I thought, oh, I know what a heart of gold is, right? So what I did is, I've never met this girl. I've never talked to this girl. I don't have a clue what goes through her heart and soul, right? So I sat down, pulled out one of these thick binders like this, right? You see how thick that is? And so I made it so that there wasn't going to be any distractions and any interruptions. So I disconnected the phone, right? And then I just opened my heart and soul. So I pulled out a pen and I just began writing. In other words, let it flow. Just let that love flow, and then just communicate to her the flow of my energy that is coming out of my heart and my soul, so that when that energy is transported onto the paper and then it gets sent through the mail, right? Like an email packet, a visual mathematical information code packet of hypertext, so that when she opens that, she's going to read this. So she doesn't have a clue about me, right? And so she sent me a letter back about, I guess it was a few weeks later. She was in a prison at the time in California. I forget the name of it. Soledad, not Soledad. It's up near, not far from San Quentin, but it's a women's facility. And she wrote me a letter back, and she made mention that she said, I get letters all the time from guys, all the sexual pornology side of things, right? And she said, I trash 98 to 99% of all the letters that get written to me. And she'd say, they're not really interested in me, okay? They're only interested in their own self-interest, right? The female energy side of the equation, if you will. So I know, because that's a separate subject, about deeply wounded males. So, I know as an androgynous, gender sort of disappears, it sort of just dissolves, because I realize I'm a nuclear power plant. Atoms, cycling, water worlds, H, hydrogen. Hydrogen as units of energy that represent consciousness. Hydrogen consciousness. Whoa, hydrogen consciousness. Yeah, there's a lot of hydrogen in the universe, isn't there? You think? The electrical potential of hydrogen? So what happened was, she had mentioned to me that she said, yours was the only letter I kept. And she goes, I keep it. So the next thing you know is that we're now having a discourse, if you will, right? I spent 2.5 days writing that letter to her, other than when I had to go to the bathroom. That's it. It just kept flowing and it just kept flowing, which means I'm not experiencing time. I'm experiencing what love is. So now love becomes a messenger, one of God's messengers. Now I'm a messenger on behalf of God, which is the law of one, which means I am one, experiencing eternal love through my heart. So I was sharing that love in a way in which I had no clue how this lady was going to react to what it is that I wrote, as the way that energy just flows right on out. Just as natural as falling off a log. Falling off a log scale, right? And so she realized, whoa, maybe we can establish a friendship. So we began having a friendship. So the point that I'm simply trying to make here is that letter that I wrote when you're in a timeless space, right? Because when I look back, I thought, wow, I kept writing and writing and writing. Matter of fact, I was writing so much that I had to stop because my hands were getting, locking up, from that. But I just kept right on going. And then I realized, okay, now I'm done. Because it's like sending a message. So you want what she experiences to experience the flow, experience the harmony, to experience the lines of communication and the actual spin and rotation of my Merkaba that she was experiencing in her heart and soul, what she's experiencing in hers. So she was experiencing the real stuff. And the way that you know that is she didn't throw it away. Okay. She said, I always will keep it. So so you can imagine what it's like for a female being in a very dominated environment, a cage, with other females, right? Who are there for other reasons, but they violated the rules. So you realize that this is a very high tension wires, like high tension voltage, high tension vibration voltage, right? So that became a healing instrument. My letter to her was what we call a healing sound instrument, because now she can always go back to that letter, right, and experience what she experienced before, which was a timeless space of love, eternal love. She experiences eternal love because that's the energy that I experienced, that I use to share the flow of how that energy communicates with another being. So she was experiencing the flow rate, the rate of speed, the harmonic speed ratio, the speed ratio of the waves. So the energy is not distorted. She wasn't experiencing any distortions in the way that the energy flowed, by the way at which it was written. She was experiencing in her heart and soul the flow of that harmony, which was the speed ratio harmonics of no distortions. That was a clear channel. That was a clear message. She experienced a clear message in her heart and her soul, and that's why she kept it. She was able to experience the balance in her DNA, in her radio set, right? So when she wanted to balance herself back out to experience what love is, she knew that she always had a sound instrument available to her as a healing instrument by that letter. Now, the coupling to this, guess who else gets to experience that? Every one of you. That's the morphogenetic field structure. So I've always known this since I was a little boy, right? Mama gets to experience that too. That's right. She's experiencing what I'm experiencing. She's experiencing the letter that I wrote to Christina, but it was also a letter to Mama. It was actually a letter to all of you in the entire cosmos. And just how beautiful love is to experience the flow rate of the harmonics that are in balance. That means the music is in balance. That means the sphere is in balance. That means the center point of that cross is in balance. And a four-way intersection, right? A crystal cathedral. A crystalline cathedral. A crystal spiral, right? So I wrote a few things down that is related to this. And because for me, it's a way to, when I think of manifestation, when I mentioned about the Voyager materials, about experiencing future moments, writing not only becomes a way to communicate throughout the morphogenetic field structure, just like I do with these videos, right? But it also allows me an opportunity to manifest and form and flow of that energy, what I'm experiencing when I'm writing all that, right? Because now I'm in manifestation mode, manifestation creation mode. My left hand is going like this, like a disc, which means the disc. See the disc, but the disc is flat on the east and west horizon, right? But it's vertical this way too, right? Then you have a disc that's like that. So you can stack the discs all the way up to the top, right? From east to west, and then you have the depth. You know, how thick is that disc? Then you can turn it diagonally, right? So if you put the two together, one vertical and one horizontal, this is probably not very good. But imagine that it was a synthesis, which means it's just one fabric of consciousness. So you have one disc that's vertical like that. Then it's like this. So stack them all the way up like this, right? And then you can run them at every angle. So there isn't any separation. So the only separation that the disc is going to experience is the speed ratio harmonic between one wave and another wave, right? Filling up all the space. That's a hot sun. That's an eternal sun. So now you're into all the visual mathematical information that is represented by all the information that's being experienced in a hologram, right? In an APIN system that is running all the data, all the visual information, mathematical codes, the character maps, the symbols of the music, right? That's a lot, isn't it? So you want your sphere, your Merkaba, to be in a state of what? Perfect balance. So you're increasing the rate of speed, which means you're not wasting any energy. Because all the energy is being used is what? Love and service to others. That would be the highest speed acceleration of electron that's being given away as the primal sound currents, coupled with the light. So The sound and light magician is experiencing being one with all creation. But we're gifting those electrons to at a very high rate of speed. Now we're back to 4 years of age. I can't give it away fast enough. Right? In order to do what? Losing mass, gaining speed, gaining mass, losing speed. Right? It's like returning home. No, I'm always at home. I never left that center point. Oh, you never left the center point of that star. Right. The first star, the first cosmic star, the first eternal sun, eternal consciousness, which is eternal love that is on fire. Right. So I try and simplify this as much as I possibly can because I'm still that little 4-year-old little boy, right? That's on fire. And so I wrote a few things down here about what it means to be one. So I put down one grand creation as co-creative units of consciousness energy experiencing itself, being one with all creation because we are all experiencing being loved by all creation spheres as the law of one. To experience the law of least effort, to experience being what love is in eternal living light spirit on fire, to create the next creation energy experience in motion, full spectrum pictures moving simultaneously. What is possible to manifest next at the speed at which holoarcs stealth mode cannot be copied to duplicate it as an original sound and light magician. That means that we're not copycats. That means we're experiencing an original sound magician, which is eternal love, which is eternal music. It's in love, experiencing what it is in energy, which is the music of love. That's the dance for freedom. Although I don't use the word D-O-M, even though it's Om, D-O-M. Depends on how you want to pronounce it in sound, notes, right? What it feels like when you emit an egg, a teardrop, right? Yeah, turtle tears. And so that's the simplicity of it. And so what that means is that they can't make a copy of it, which means they can't take a picture of us, right? And then make a copy of us. Otherwise, they could make a copy of eternity, and we know that it can't do that. Otherwise, it would be experiencing what eternity is. So you need to go at a slower rate of speed in order to make a copy of something, right? Otherwise, it's moving too fast. It's not there. You put something up in one of those Xerox carbon copiers, and it's just like, hey, there's nothing there. Whatever consciousness was that you wanted to make a copy of is gone. Well, it moved that fast. The camera, shutter speed, which is the isobars. Isobars is O-bar. I-S, ions, neural ions. Yeah, it's like I mentioned to Aaron this morning, when I gave him $27. I said, you realize what's going on here? I said, you know what was going on there? Where was it, Ohio? How they target different populations, right? Race lines, lines of communication, right? Just like what they did with Hurricane Andrew. Remember Hurricane Andrew? I remember Hurricane Andrew off in Florida. Katrina, right? What they were trying to do in Katrina, right? So when you put this through the camera lens and the visual information data about why certain events occur, why they occur, where they occur, at the density and dimensional level in which they're experienced, right? And so you can see how different events are being experienced by different people in different geomagnetic locations, vectors, and why others don't experience those things, right? Because at the end of the day, and this is what I realize, it's one of the reasons why it's like I'm I'm spending less time on this phone watching movies, for example, or other things, except that when you realize that your eternity and you're going into something that's held in a water bank, a memory bank, and at the speed at which that was being experienced by those that were experiencing what that is at the time in which it was being experienced, in the vectors in which it was being experienced at as a location, means that now your consciousness is in there and transmuting whatever was in there at one time that's held in memory. So you just collapsed it, right? By virtue of the way the morphogenetic field structure works between what it is we're connected to that we thus experience through a torsion field movie player. So you realize, oh, we're running different movie sets. Yeah, exactly. So that's why there's what you experience, there's what I experience. So this is why when I was going back to a child, without wanting to reduce somebody's frequency, right, because we give love to all creation, is why the art of communication is so important, so that you maintain your peace, harmony. You maintain your harmony of your music, maintaining the music that you're playing, right? By virtue of the communication, lines of communication that we have, by virtue of the music that we're using to communicate with each other through a language that doesn't work very well for me, which is English. Because there's no way that English, in the way that it sounds and the speed at which it comes out, is going to be at the same rate that I experience who I am. Right? I can't get that much information out at once. And certainly not by the letters that represent the math and the music of that language. It just doesn't work. Okay? It just doesn't work. Silent running is what I used to call it. We're silent running, subharmonics like a sub, sonar. Ping, ping. Remember the old Morse code? Did-it-it, da-da-da, did-it-it, da-da-da. Right? Telegraph, the graph, and the gram, the weight of the reality stream, which now we're back to electrical density consciousness. I got to cut through a lot of density here in order to experience what I am before I went down there. That's why if you're up in the mountains and you're experiencing, I'm experiencing a lot of powerful scalar waves. Hey, now I'm going to go in a different density field down here, right? Because now I'm experiencing what they're experiencing by virtue of what they're held captive by, what's held in their memory bank. So that would be race line, communication line memory banks, right? And so now you can tie that into the previous. So this is sort of why when I realized to be helpful not only into my own energy field, but why we're here to begin with as transmutation machines. Ma, chi, right? Chings. Ching, 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 ching. Like I think she mentioned last night in one of her videos about the frequencies, the crystalline frequencies, the auroras. All the work's being done. Atmospheric crystalline rivers, right? And how I've described it to those folks that have seen the videos that I've done, when I've even mentioned it actually, has to do with chimes. She used the word chimes. I think I did also. When the wind is blowing through the chimes, the spirit in the wind, the airlines of communication, right? And so that's what I hear every day. Sometimes they vary throughout the day. I can hear the pressure, the pressure bands. Now we're back in the bands, pressure bands, low pressure systems, high pressure systems, equilibrium states of consciousness, right? Yeah. So I have fun with this sometimes, but I wanted to share this because I have found that one of the best therapies that I use if I'm in sort of what I call a holding pattern, even though things are always happening around you, is I do a lot of writing exercises, because whenever all that love is pouring out of my heart, because I'm a poet, a storyteller, a musician first in spirit, then it allows me to be able to just pour it out. I go into a timeless space is what it is. So what I'm really doing is communicating to Mama. And I've been trying for years to sort of get myself over to the Redwood Coast up in Northern California and just sit down with her and just start writing to her, love letters all day long. as if it's like a storyline. It's like a new narrative. Hey, you want to experience something different, Mama? Let's go off into a dreamscape. Now you and I are together because now I'm just going to pour this out day after day after day. And the next thing you know is your reality changes around you. And all you did was write. Because you're actually manifesting in creation by virtue of what you're experiencing and what is happening. And I found for me anyway, when I write with her that way, I write love letters. Right? Which means you're writing love letters to yourself. Okay? Because you're experiencing in your mirror what you're writing, which is what you're communicating, which is what you're manifesting into creation itself. So now you're experiencing yourself, using your energy in which to do that with. Now she's experiencing that. So I know she loves love letters. I know she loves poems. She loves the music that's in what? In the writing, in the energy that's communicated in music, what we feel through our heart and our soul, what we feel magnetically. Absolutely. How powerful is that magnet, right? So when you're androgynous, it's easy to be in balance. And yeah, I wanted to leave it on a high note, a musical note, a musical high note, and not get into all the breeding experiment stuff in lines of communication, crystal lines of communication, because that's actually the biggest subject that I know. Because for me, I make it real simple, and that is that all lines of communication are open, which means that every DNA, every operating system, or every seeded race has line 1. Remember line 1? Pick up line 1. Oh, that's the main line. That's the main line. That's the main rod. Now you're getting the main operator. Dial magnetic 0. Now you're experiencing God's phone. Oh, God's phone. I got him on the line. Right? No, it's a him and a her. A mother God. Okay? Which means it's not really gender, right? It's about a blast furnace. Becoming one with all creation we're gifting love to. So it's an eternal love vibration. Yeah. So in other words, you're dialing 1, God's phone, to experience eternal love vibration. Yeah, exactly. The music of love. That's how it works, because that's how I experience it. Right? So have a great day. Be good to yourselves. Beloveds. Beloveds on a disc.